Anderson at the base of the pack. Rodan ready to hoover it up. He threw it. He threw it to himself. He got away with blue murder, but he's not complaining. He streams into goal and makes it count.
He was the first Fijian to be drafted into the AFL back in 2002, and we are very pleased to have him on the show. Please welcome David Rodan. David, thank you very much for your time. My first question to you is, are you a Tongan-born Fijian who is now an Australian citizen, or are you a Fijian-born Tongan who is now an Australian citizen?
That would be option B. So, Fijian-born Tongan, that's, Australian citizen. So, thanks for having me on board. Very happy to be a part of the program and, look forward to having a chat.
Dave, Nigel here. I understand you used to play a bit of rugby and then you chose AFL. Why is that?
Hi, Nigel. I think when I first moved over to Australia in 1987, Dad sort of drove around all around Victoria trying to find a rugby team. I think we couldn't find a rugby team after a few weeks, and I was on the way to church on a Sunday, and opposite the church was an oval, and they were playing football, Aussie rules, but they can knock it on. So Dad said, "Look, you can play this sport until we find a rugby team." Unfortunately, we didn't end up finding a rugby team, and then a few years later, started playing in the AFL. So I was pretty lucky. Accidentally came on to AFL, but sort of grew to love it.
David, Monia speaking. You claim yourself as a Fijian when I first met you in Adelaide. How connected are you in Fiji?
Yeah, look, obviously, growing up here in Fiji, with my parents heavily involved in the Fijian community over here. We obviously go to mass every Sunday and creating some Fijian contacts here, but also when we go back home, we've got a big family base, obviously in Suva, that we keep in touch with, and we're still sort of very traditional, and we try not to lose our tradition, but Mum and Dad also remind us, and I think that was pretty important growing up, that we knew about our Fijian heritage and where we came from. So still very connected, and very proud to be Fijian and part Tongan, but very much proud to be a Pacific Islander. Yeah.
Now, you talk about Fiji. I once spoke to a rugby coach who said, how was the national team going? And he said, I've got 14 wingers and one fullback. And rugby in general is par for the course when you come to Fiji. Why don't you see a lot of Islanders playing AFL? And is that changing now? Yeah,
look, I think it's not about competing with rugby, but I think everyone knows that in the islands, rugby will always be number one. But I think it's another avenue for Pacific Islanders that are, I guess, growing up here, and also I guess we're starting some programs up in Fiji. I guess Auskick and some weekend programs where you can get involved in AFL, and hopefully with I guess their natural abilities, natural talent in speed, thirst for the contest, and also agility, and these areas that they sort of naturally gifted in, as all Pacific Islanders are. Hopefully they can get them involved into AFL, and hopefully one day be like Nick Nat-Nui and play on some big stages and represent not just their country but also the Pacific Islands.
Dave, you talk about the speed and agility, and I understand you've had 3 knee reconstructions in your career so far. I know from my rugby league experiences, when the boys get injuries or get leg injuries, they tend to put on a lot of weight. Have you had to change your training or your recovery in your rehab because of your specific body shape?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I've done 3 knees, but my first one was probably the biggest challenge. I think I was still living at home with Mum and Dad, and I think they were still cooking up, the dalo and the tavioka, and cooking lovors now and again. But it was a little bit hard. I think it was a big thing for my parents to understand the dietitian, requirements. What we need to do and what we can't do. I guess rugby is a bit different to AFL, where I think AFL you got to obviously do a fair bit of cardio and a fair bit more running. It's more aerobic based, so we can't be too heavy. So I had to stay away from the island food, and stick with more of the fish and keep light, because especially when you do your knee, that you won't be active for a little while. So you got to make sure your weight's down, so when you do start running, that you can stay intact. And yeah, not be too heavy. So yeah, it was very hard for the family to adapt to that. But yeah, I think after the second and the third one, Mum did really well.
David, you being the first Fijian drafted into an AFL club, how do you go about your business in terms of pursuing more Polynesian players taking up AFL?
Yeah, look, I've been pretty big pushing Pacific Islanders playing footy. I think ever since I got started when I was 18 at Richmond Football Club, talking to everybody that I know, just saying that I guess the natural attributes that they possess, I think they could definitely impact on the game. I guess where the best players at AFL level are the ones that can break lines, have speed, and love the contact. Which is they tick all those boxes, and I guess all Pacific Islanders tick that box. So. Not just Fiji, but all the islands. You see, we have Melbourne Football Club, where I'm at the moment. They did an international pickup with a New Zealand boy from Whakatane. So he's with us at the moment. He's been training with us, living out in East Melbourne, and he's sort of come on leaps and bounds. So he's developing that area. But I think more AFL clubs are really starting to look at that international recruit that can join onto the list, and hopefully. One day we can see one of them, come through, and it can become just a normal thing like the draft.
I have to take my hat off to you, having a Polynesian mother, as we all do, trying to convince her that no, we can't eat that, we have to eat this. That shows great fortitude. You also have a lot of interest in the community. You're running a lot of community-based projects. Tell us a little bit more about that. Yeah,
look, I guess I'm part of a fantastic program, AFL Multicultural Australia Post program. So, there are 10 or 11 of us around Australia. So we got Nick Nat-Nui in Western Australia, Alapati Carlo in South Australia, and then we've got so Carmichael Hunt, Joel Wilkinson, Lee Montagna, Bashar Hooley, who's doing some fantastic work in the Muslim community. So all vast sort of diverse backgrounds, but just encouraging. I guess engagement within cultural communities. So using football because it is so dominant here in Australia, and try to use that as a vehicle to get them involved in their communities, to feel more comfortable and hopefully engage a bit more into the community, because we know that I guess when you come from a different country, it's hard to adapt to the community. So we try to make programs to encourage that, develop that, and at the moment, with the Melbourne Football Club, we're aligned with the city of Casey out in Cranbourne. Near Dandenong, and there's a big population of Pacific Islanders over there. So hopefully, we're in the process of devising some programs together. So hopefully we can get them involved, and not just get them in football, but get them joining the community. Because I guess I knew when I moved over from Australia, I saw my sort of family struggle, or my parents struggle a bit to connect. We had our Fijian community, and that was great, but we didn't sort of connect to the community. It wasn't until we joined the football club they started to make friends within there, and Mum and Dad felt really comfortable. So, we're just trying to bridge that gap and break down some barriers.
Dave, that's awesome. And it sounds like you guys are doing some good work in the community. I know from the league and the rugby boys that we deal with here in Sydney, when it used to get hot, we used to wear lovers to training and island t-shirts and stuff. You've done a lot of work in the community. How do you share your culture with your teammates? Yeah, look, I think it's like you said, little things like that we talk about Fiji time all the time. So whenever we're late, we blame that. And also little things like, just, I guess, passive things when you walk past someone, saying bulla, vanaka, thank you, and just getting them a little bit of the culture. So, hopefully that, they pick up little bits and pieces. And, it's quite funny that a lot of people actually been to Fiji for holidays. So they come back and they approach me about it. So, give about the positive feedback. So it's actually quite good. You try to push it as much as you can, because I guess we were quite the minority, but look, very proud, and a lot of people, and especially the AFL, are starting to invest a fair bit of money to the Pacific, and hopefully we can see some rewards in the future.
My interest to you, David, is as the first cab off the rank, did you ever come across bullying or being ostracised, or were you welcomed into the fold? And also, what are your advice to our youngsters who are growing up who want to take up the sport?
Yeah, look, it's a very good question. When I first started, it took me a while to adapt. I thought, I looked different. I had different looking parents. I was a lot heavier than I think some of the players when I first started. So I was the only sort of dark boy that was playing football, and especially from a Polynesian background. So it was very different to adapt and get used to. I guess I was stereotyped a little bit, but I made some really good friends, and I guess through those contacts, they helped me, sort of through the ranks. And when I eventually got drafted, those people you sort of never forget. So I guess it's getting those, those relationships around you are pretty solid. And once you do, those people will support you in any way you want to go, whether that is sport or business or anything you want to go into. It's important to have those, those support, people around you. Yeah.
David, I hear you don't mind a bit of dancing. I'm sure you probably want to throw out the old Fijian hula now and then, but how do you embrace that at training, or do you teach some of the boys how to, break down and, I don't know, do a roundhouse kick and then a flip or something like that? Like, what makes you want to just dance? Is it an Islander thing, or is it just?
Yeah, I think it is. It's look, I think obviously when we grew up here and also in Fiji, we didn't have a lot of money, but I think our grandparents, when they used to have their 60th, 70th, 80th sort of birthdays, we couldn't buy them anything. So I think that our gift was we'd get all the nephews and cousins together and we'd do a little performance and a little dance for them. So that was our way. That was our gift to them. And I guess that's where it started, and we've always had a love for, I think all Polynesian communities, they've all got a thirst for music and dance, and especially in church. A lot of Pacific Islanders are very church related, so
I hear you don't mind teaching your boys as well.
Teach my boys, yeah. So we've got I think you got some background information for that,
but
trade. You got resources, but look, I've got 3 sons, and I think half an hour before we go to bed, we have dance time. So, they've got a fair bit of energy. They're pretty active, Islander kids. So we get them in the room and we put on Chris Brown and all these other music, and they just sort of, they go nuts and they dance and get all their energy out. So it's, it's sort of, kills 2 birds with 1 stone. So, we enjoy that, and I enjoy that sort of stuff. And, we've got a grand final footy show that's coming up at the moment, the same sort of thing that you just showed then. So we're looking forward to that as well.
Dave, just watching some of that footage there, you can see those dance moves in any village in the Pacific. But you also talk about religion. How much does that play a part in your family life?
Yeah, it's been very important. We come from a very religious family. I think most Pacific Islanders do. And I guess that's what when we first came to Australia, that's what we did. We connected straight away to the church. And then we met some Fijian families, and we every Sunday would be there and mixing with the Fijian community. So it's a big part of our life, and my parents sort of brought us up with that. And what I appreciate about I guess being religious is that it's I guess more than anything, it's reading between the lines, is that it's the faith. So in terms of taking it to wherever you are, but keeping the faith in life, and especially when things aren't going your way. That sort of stuff you can always go to, and it's also been a very big part of my life.
Look, I've got one more question before we have to wrap this conversation up. You say you've got 3 boys. What is the one advice that you want to leave with them, and you try and encourage them with as they make their way through their lives?
Look, I think it's I guess pretty much try everything. I think in terms of that, sport, business, whatever you want to do, try everything, and then find out what your passion is, and then whatever your passion is, work as hard as you can to achieve what you want to achieve. Because I think if you're passionate about it, you'll do anything to succeed. So find your passion, and then work hard to see it develop and hopefully become what you want it to become.
David Rodan, thank you very much for your time.
Guys, thanks for having me.